Neville Goddard was born in Barbados in 1905, into a family that could neither be categorized as very wealthy nor extremely impoverished. His early experiences included exposure to various religious and philosophical traditions, though his most significant formative influence was a Jewish mystic named Abdullah, who introduced him to the esoteric dimensions of the Bible and the transformative role of imagination. Neville's teachings broke away from traditional religious dogma. Instead, he viewed the Bible largely as a psychological and mystical document that provides an allegorical roadmap to harnessing one's inner creative power. The stories in Scripture, for him, served as metaphors for human consciousness and its latent abilities. Over the course of many years, he gave thousands of lectures, authored numerous books, including At Your Command, The Power of Awareness, and Feeling is the Secret, and built a legacy that still flourishes decades after his death in 1972. Though Neville offered a variety of insights, his core teachings can be distilled into a few guiding principles. Imagination as God. Neville posited that each individual's imagination is the very creative force or God within. According to him, humanity's greatest oversight is attributing creative power to external phenomena, rather than recognizing imagination as the root of all experience. Assumption. Another cornerstone of Neville's philosophy is the power of assumption. To assume something is to accept it as true, regardless of current evidence. Neville emphasized that holding an assumption in mind, and feeling it to be true, ultimately creates a corresponding external manifestation. Feeling as the secret. As expressed in his well-known work Feeling is the Secret, Neville advocated that emotion and feeling are key to planting seeds of manifestation in the fertile soil of the subconscious mind. Simply visualizing without the emotional charge of already possessing one's desire is less likely to produce results. Subjective appropriation. Neville often spoke of the necessity to subjectively appropriate one's aim by taking on the feeling state of that wish fulfilled. Rather than asking how or when, he taught students to immerse themselves in the experience of already having it, trusting that the external world would realign itself to mirror their inner state. Understanding living in the end. In simple terms, living in the end entails inhabiting the state of already being or having what you desire. Suppose your desire is to achieve financial security, find the ideal relationship, or improve your health. Rather than continually longing, planning, or worrying about how to get there, Neville instructs you to adopt the mental, emotional, and spiritual state that you would naturally occupy once the goal has already come to pass. This shift requires more than casual daydreaming. It demands consistency of focus and a willingness to release contradictory thoughts. Indeed, living in the end calls for a disciplined imagination that refuses to be swayed by appearances if those appearances conflict with the felt reality of already having achieved the desire. The difference between wishing and assuming. One of the most significant misunderstandings about living in the end is to equate it with merely wanting or wishing. Neville pointed out that wishing is passive and unproductive. For instance, someone might say, "I wish I had more money," while simultaneously reinforcing an inner state of lack or unworthiness. The outer expression of such an inner contradiction will invariably be frustration and continued lack. To truly live in the end is to assume the state of the wish fulfilled wholeheartedly, allowing that assumption to shape one's thoughts, feelings, and actions. It changes the entire psycho-spiritual environment within which a person operates. Rather than wanting it to happen someday, the seer claims it done now, prompting the subconscious mind, and ultimately external reality, to reorganize accordingly. The role of belief and imagination. Underlying living in the end is the premise that belief and imagination are far from idle functions of the mind. Rather, they are potent creative instruments. Neville describes imagination as God in action. In his worldview, creation is finished. Everything already exists within the infinite potential of consciousness, and it is imagination that selects and collapses possibility into tangible experience. However, if one's belief and imagination are oriented toward failure, limitation, or unworthiness, that too will shape experience. Living in the end demands redirecting these creative forces. Instead of focusing on undesired scenarios, the practitioner invests belief and imagination into the mental scene that depicts and symbolizes the goal as already complete. It is from this stable assumption that life begins to shift, step by step, to match that inner picture. The mindset shift required for living in the end. Overcoming the evidence of the senses. Arguably, the greatest challenge in living in the end is learning to tune out or reinterpret the evidence of the senses that appears to contradict one's chosen assumption. Humans are trained from childhood to rely on external data to define what is real or possible. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist, is the prevailing mindset. Neville instead teaches that the outer world is an echo or reflection of the inner state. Thus, waiting for the outside to confirm the new reality is akin to waiting for your mirror reflection to smile before you do. Rather, the shift must occur within first. This approach demands faith in the creative potency of consciousness, a faith that can feel profoundly counterintuitive when one is used to trusting only what is tangibly verifiable. Embracing the feeling of fulfillment. Neville's repeated emphasis is that the secret lies in feeling. Many novices might visualize a desired outcome, but do so from a stance of lack. They see the new job, home, or relationship, yet remain anxious or doubtful. This mixture of contradictory feelings muddies the creative waters. To master living in the end, one must learn to saturate the mind and heart with the sensation of already being in possession of the desired result. This might involve taking a few quiet moments each day to sit, breathe, and vividly imagine the conclusion scene. If your desire is a loving relationship, for instance, you might imagine coming home to your partner at the end of the day, exchanging a warm embrace, and feeling grateful that this love is now your reality. The trick is to remain consistent in that feeling state, especially when external conditions seem unchanged. Remember that you are reprogramming a deeper layer of the mind to accept the new assumption as true. The outer reflection may take time to catch up, so your job is to maintain faith during the transitional period. Letting go of the how. A common stumbling block for many practitioners is trying to control or logically map the sequence of events that will lead to their fulfillment. Neville encourages individuals to release the how and focus only on the end. From his perspective, a higher intelligence, the creative power that orchestrates everything, will handle the manner in which your desire unfolds. This does not mean that no action is required. Rather, it means that actions should emerge naturally from the state of having the desire fulfilled. If you live in the end of having a thriving business, for example, you will likely find yourself inspired to undertake steps that align with that assumption. However, you are not micromanaging every detail out of fear or uncertainty. Actions become inspired and confident, rooted in the knowledge that the goal is already a done deal in the realm of imagination. Practical techniques and tools for living in the end. A fundamental technique Neville recommends is constructing a short, vivid scene in your imagination that implies your desire has been realized. This scene should be brief, just a few seconds or half a minute in length, because it is more effective for repeated immersion. The scene should be recorded in your mind with sensory detail and emotional intensity. For instance, if your desire is to live in your dream home, you might imagine stepping onto the porch, feeling the cool breeze, hearing the rustle of leaves, and marveling at the comfort and security you feel. Once you have that scene, you replay it in your imagination during periods of relaxation, such as before drifting off to sleep or during meditation. If it is properly constructed and felt, repeating this scene can imprint the assumption of fulfilled desire onto the subconscious mind. Over time, your external reality begins to reflect this inner shift. The end of the day reflection. Another Neville-inspired practice is the end of the day reflection. As you lie in bed before sleep, you reflect on your day, but you revise or rewrite any events that did not align with your fulfilled desire. If the day included frustrations or outcomes that contradict your chosen state, you reconstruct those events in your imagination until they match the vision of how you want things to be. This technique not only soothes the subconscious with a positive impression before sleep, but it also helps dissolve limiting beliefs and patterns that may have arisen during the day. Affirmations and inner dialogue. Though Neville placed heavy emphasis on imagination, affirmations and mental conversations also play a supportive role. This can involve consciously directing your inner self-talk to match the state of your fulfilled desire. For instance, if you are aiming for financial prosperity, you replace thoughts of scarcity or worry with affirmations such as, "I am now enjoying a state of financial abundance and freedom." By consistently reorienting your inner dialogue, you maintain alignment with the new assumption. Over time, this disciplined approach to mental chatter reprograms the subconscious to accept abundance as the default state. You may find that your daily experiences start offering confirmations, unexpected checks, new job opportunities, or supportive circumstances that amplify your new assumption of prosperity. Overcoming common obstacles. One of the foremost barriers to mastering living in the end is doubt, the sneaking suspicion that perhaps imagination is not as powerful as Neville claims, or that you might be somehow unworthy or incapable. Doubt can undermine the consistency of your assumption and sabotage your progress. A useful strategy is to treat doubt as a natural part of human consciousness rather than an insurmountable enemy. Acknowledge it when it arises, and remind yourself that faith in your assumption is a choice. You can shift your focus back to the end state whenever you notice your mind wandering into fear or skepticism. Emotional turbulence. Intense emotions such as anxiety, grief, or anger can disrupt the calm focus required for living in the end. It's important to not suppress these emotions but to process them in healthy ways, through journaling, physical activity, therapy, or meditation, so they don't dominate your consciousness. Once the emotional intensity subsides, you can recenter on the feeling of fulfillment. Remember that living in the end does not imply denying legitimate emotional experiences. Rather, it involves returning again and again to the chosen assumption after you've given your emotions the space to be acknowledged and understood. Inconsistency. Another common stumbling block is inconsistency, attempting living in the end in sporadic bursts while allowing the old state of lack or doubt to dominate the majority of one's mental life. To address this, regular practice is crucial. Set aside specific times to nurture your imaginative scene, to revise unwanted experiences at day's end, and to reaffirm your new identity in daily life. View it much like exercising a muscle. Short, occasional workouts may not yield the desired fitness results, but consistent, purposeful training over weeks and months can profoundly transform one's body. Likewise, consistent practice of living in the end can yield equally profound changes in your internal and external reality. The deeper spiritual dimension of living in the end. Though living in the end can be used for material goals, health, relationships, finances, it also carries profound spiritual implications. Neville taught that the ultimate aim is to awaken to the truth that you are the operant power in your world. By recognizing that your imagination shapes reality, you come to see yourself not as a victim of circumstance but as a co-creator with the divine. This paradigm shift can be radically empowering, yet it comes with responsibility. You realize that the thoughts you nurture and the emotions you dwell upon have far-reaching consequences. This calls for ethical consideration. How can I use my creative power in a way that benefits me and aligns with the greater good? The mysterious unity of consciousness. Neville's perspective harmonizes with certain ancient mystical traditions, suggesting that consciousness is singular and universal. Each of us appears to be an individual, yet we emerge from a collective field of awareness. If so, living in the end becomes a method for aligning oneself with the universal creative force. In this framework, personal desires are not selfish. They arise from the universal desire to experience life in countless ways. By fulfilling a desire, we enhance the total expression of life itself. Consequently, practicing these techniques can be viewed as contributing to universal expansion, as long as they align with love, harmony, and respect for all. The end as a metaphor for self-realization. From another angle, living in the end can be interpreted as a metaphor for self-realization or enlightenment. The ultimate end is the recognition of your inherent unity with the creative source, or I am. In this sense, Every manifested desire is but a stepping stone toward remembering your true identity as consciousness manifesting forms and experiences. When you fully embody the realization I am, you have reached the final end, complete unity with the source of all existence. Therefore, while Neville's technique can be used pragmatically to attract particular outcomes, it also points to a journey of awakening. Through repeated practice, individuals may find themselves drawn deeper into spiritual inquiry, ultimately finding that the greatest fulfillment lies in recognizing the eternal presence behind all desires. Embracing the fulfilled future. Neville Goddard's teachings on living in the end offer an empowering approach to manifesting desires and deepening one's understanding of consciousness. Rather than looking outside for solutions, one learns to direct the creative faculties within, imagination, emotion, and belief, to shape external circumstances. Central to this practice is the unwavering assumption that one's aim is already realized, maintained through disciplined inner focus and emotional conviction. Living in the end is not about dismissing reality or denying the practical aspects of life. Instead, it invites us to reorder our priorities so that the inner state of fulfillment becomes the defining reality, which the outer world eventually reflects. In this way, the practice functions both as a method for achieving personal goals and as a spiritual path that reveals our identity as co-creators with the divine. Ultimately, mastering living in the end invites a profound shift in how we perceive ourselves, others, and the world. It calls forth a recognition that what transpires in our imaginal realm is not a figment of fantasy, but a seed of lived experience waiting to blossom. We come to realize that every end is contained within us, awaiting our acceptance and assumption. By living from the conclusion we wish to see, we beckon the extraordinary into the sphere of the ordinary, bridging the invisible and the visible, and unveiling the immense creative potential that resides in every human heart. In so doing, we align with the heart of Neville Goddard's message, that imagination is the sacred force shaping our destinies and that we possess the innate ability to mold our life experience. The invitation is clear: dare to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Dare to persist in that assumption until it becomes second nature. Dare to trust that life itself will conspire to manifest your vision. And in that sacred daring, discover the immeasurable power of living in the end.